tame this curl back.
We're live.
Hey.
Hey, everybody.
Ladies.
Hello.
This is my favorite subject. Well, one of. Should we kick it off? Jen, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. So first of all, to everyone who is joining us, we really appreciate you. We appreciate you showing up. As you know, we do these lives as sort of a lead into all the different things that we're going to do with the landing your dream job virtual 2-day career accelerator. But we also do it because we really want to help, and we know that people get stuck, and we want to help you get unstuck is sort of the point of this event. A little bit about my background. I am the CEO and founder of Intry, and we built a technology platform that helps get resumes through applicant tracking system software. So what you see on the top isn't necessarily the magic that you see underneath. And then, Intry's involved to a bunch of other different things that everybody on this panel has really helped bring us to there. So we're a group of people that really care about all of you who are in career transition and job seekers, and that's why we're here. So I will turn it over to, how about Gina?
Ball caught. Okay. Sorry. Got to go off mute. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gina Riley. I am an executive career transition coach, and I coach people who are either in a career transition, as in they're not working or they've been laid off. And I also work with people who are very strategic and planning longer term their next career move. And what I do is I use a program that I've developed called Career Velocity. I am currently in the first round edits for a book that I'll publish in Q2 with Forbes. And the mess you see here behind my desk is all of the chapters that I'm trying to get through by hand. And what is so exciting about what we've developed together is the fact that it's taking job seekers through all these moving parts of a career transition. And I am super lucky and fortunate to kick it off with how to develop your unique value proposition. And so that's actually the first 5 chapters of my book. So it's been a pleasure and an honor to be a part of this. And I love helping the job seekers that come our way and trust us to join the bootcamp. I'll hand it over to Claire. I feel like week after week, I'm getting better at this mute button. You'd think after all the times we've been live on LinkedIn. Hey, everybody, I'm Claire Davis. And if we haven't yet met, I am so excited to be with these incredible women who are going to be also presenting at this boot camp where you can really get things unlocked and checked off your list when it comes to your job search in 48 hours. So anybody who's going through that right now, I know you know how that is going to feel so good to get that off your list. So I'm the CEO and founder of Traction Resume, where we help people tell their career story and also build their personal brand so that they can get the careers in medical sales and healthcare that they desire. And here's the deal. The better that people can get into the right fit jobs, the better all of us are able to thrive and live. So I'm so grateful to be here, and I will pass it over to the amazing Lindsay Dowd.
It's so fun to be with you all. So I said earlier, this is one of my favorite topics, and it's so funny because it was never a topic in my world even 3 years ago. So I am Lindsay Dowd. I am the Chief Heartbeat Officer and founder of my company, Heartbeat for Hire. I'm a 2-time author, a podcast host, a leadership coach, and a keynote speaker. And we are so passionate about this 48-hour career catalyst. And what we did with our last cohort was truly, truly transformational. But the thing we're talking about today is the importance of building your brand. And when I say building your brand, I don't mean taking your title from your corporate job and saying that is your brand. Your brand, this is what I thought it was. I thought my brand was my reputation, my accolades. Everyone knew me at my old company. That's not your brand. Your brand is your why, your purpose, how you show up in the world, and what you deliver, what you can offer. And it took me leaving the corporate world and setting out on this uncharted course of entrepreneurship to figure out, oh gosh, I need to dust that off. I need to figure out what it is. I need to have a logo. I need to have a LinkedIn page. I need a website. I need all these things. But really, what you need is to define your why. You need your unique value prop. And once you have that, it makes the brand building part a little easier. So why don't we just talk a little bit about some of our lessons learned? Because I think this is a really, we've all gone through this. So maybe why don't we talk about some of the big mistakes we made that we like to prevent others from making? Because I think maybe we can help some people on this call. So Claire, why don't we start with you?
I would love to jump in on this because I'm sure that for those of you tuning in, you might be thinking, okay, well, there are many different sides to me, right? I know I feel this way sometimes, even when I'll take like a strengths finder or a personality assessment, that you get some results and you get your, top 5 and you go through them and wow, they're really on point and that really is who I am. And then you also think, yeah, but there's more. Like there's a little bit more to me. And also every day we're not really firing on all cylinders on all of those 5 top qualities. So what I like to think of is that our brand encompasses all of us, but actually there's a purpose to branding. And what I think the purpose to branding is the same thing as when we're presenting ourselves online through a LinkedIn profile, as it is when we're presenting ourselves and standing ourselves up for a job. It all revolves around our target. So branding for me really was unlocked when I stopped trying to describe the entirety of who I was as a person. Because as many of you here listening probably think as well, I'm a lot. There's a lot to me. So how in the world do I get that down to a meaningful few bullet points that people are going to care about to read more or to come in and hire me? So for me, I like to take a really good, strong look at who I want to read about me, who I want to engage with me or reach out to because maybe they're interested in hiring me, and start to think about in terms of what would be relevant to that target. Do I need to tell them about my sourdough bread baking and my love of crochet? Or maybe do I need to focus just on how I streamline processes so business moves a little faster? So that was an aha moment for me. How about you, Gina? Did you have an aha moment when it came to your personal branding?
I did, a huge one. I'll share that, but I didn't know about the crochet, and I do follow you as an avid fan, and I knew about the sourdough. Yeah. So I will be inviting you to my house to show my husband how to do it because the skill should be his.
Absolutely. I think that's a shared responsibility for sure.
Don't you think? Because he will double down on anything he loves best. So apple pie, and now it'll be sourdough. So good stuff. And omelets.
I actually forgot about the apple pie.
So the question that you asked though is like, did I have that moment where I went, oh, that's what I should be putting out there. This is what I'm about, because what you're putting out there is what you're trying to attract. So we've talked a lot about people that come off as a Swiss Army knife. I can do it all. Put me in, coach. I can do this job. I've seen it all. But the challenge with that is you will have a confused audience. So as a career coach, if I put myself out there and say that I serve anybody that comes my way, is that actually true? And is that what I'm actually trying to, is everyone who I'm trying to serve? And so even through my own business coaching, what I started to understand is me and my name is my brand, Gina Riley Consulting, for example. And then I created a program, Career Velocity. That isn't my brand. It's an offering out of my brand. And so that's one of my Swiss Army knife tools over here, but I can do all of these other things as well. Like you were saying, Claire, what do you double down on? And kind of what Lindsay was saying is you're not your job title. Mm-hmm. The title is one thing. And some people really misuse their LinkedIn headlines and some of the way they describe themselves, which is really damaging during job search, because no recruiter will find you in a drop-down menu that they're paying so much money for unicorn wrangler or something like that. There isn't a unicorn wrangler that I know of that you get found for. So you've got to be sharp and clear so that you attract the right kind of attention. And so that for me early, like 6-7 years ago, as I developed my program, it was, Gina, what is your focus? Who's the target? who needs to hear your information. And if other people outside of that get benefit, then I'm putting great things out into the world. So
that's such a good point, Gina, because we've all experienced this where if you're not using just the right words, you can't be found. And we talk about this through the resume hunt. We talk about this for how you build your LinkedIn profile. But there is also a little element of creativity. And there's something that my friend Joanna Lohman calls being the essence of a professional, the combination of personal and professional, and adding a little bit of that personality, like the sourdough bread queen or, horse lover from Jen. When you add those things in, it makes you a little bit relatable. Now, does it detract from your brand? No, it enhances your brand. But to Gina's point earlier, you kind of need to build an umbrella, and all of the things and the services that you offer fit nicely under that umbrella. You don't want to make it confusing. You don't want people to have to work to figure you out. You want to serve yourself up easily so people can go, oh, well, I understand why she's a keynote and what she does for coaching. I'm not sure I get the LinkedIn workshop thing, but maybe I'll go and find out why. I can give you the why, but it all does fit together, and you want it to fit together nicely. Jen, I know you have some thoughts.
I didn't want to interrupt, so I just put some of them in the comment section. But I think there is who you are as a person, as your brand, right? And then there is your brand as a company. And sometimes there's crossover and sometimes there's not. And so there has to be sort of like your core brand and then sort of the sub brands. Like when Gina was talking about, Career Velocity, that's sort of a subset of her core brand. And I think, right now we are going into a time where there have been a lot of reduction in forces. There's probably some more to come. And, you have to be able to market yourself a little bit differently, right? So it's like, you are looking maybe for a full-time job, but you also can do fractional work. There are lots of different things that you can do, and how you create your brand and how you communicate that is really critical. So someone doesn't go to your banner and go, they seem sort of schizophrenic. Who do they want to be? And when you are a Swiss Army knife, I am a Swiss Army knife. I can do lots of different things, but narrowing down that message to what your core strengths are, and that what you are saying on your resume, what you're saying on your LinkedIn page, and what you're saying in content that you're promoting, that there's a synergy and you're using words that tie in to what your brand is. And that does a myriad of different things and helping you bubble up when people are doing searches, and understanding the searches or the job descriptions that you're applying for. What are some of the words that they're using in those descriptions, and making sure that you're enhancing your UVP and your profile with those. So there's this like cross-pollination effect.
Gina, you're on mute. Gina, you're on mute.
Oh,
Gina.
See, this happens all the time. You know what I mean? It's just we get excited.
It makes it look so professional when you do like blah, blah, blah. Thank you for letting me jump in. So I was doing a mini interview with Claire Davis because she's got a little spotlight in my book. And one of the takeaways I got from a conversation with her, Claire, I don't know if you remember, is what can happen to some of the people that we're serving. They get typecast into a particular kind of role. And so everything on the LinkedIn profile and everything on the resume, which is true and accurate, describing what you have done, may not reflect where you are going. I have a specific example. One of my clients grew most of her career through the finance function. So repeatedly going in and overhauling entire financial systems, people, processes, structure, and with tremendous results. So what is she getting found for on LinkedIn with those drop-down menus and her job titles? CFO roles, which she has done. However, she's actually well positioned to be the CEO of any given nonprofit that it's, that her heart is attached to, but she doesn't look, walk, and talk like the CEO that she also could be. So what did she do? She got a certification from the third sector and has, then done 3 fractional roles, back to your point, Jennifer, 3 different fractional roles in CEO and COO roles. Now she's getting contacted and found for the kind of role that she wants to. So that's one thing that you have to be mindful for on LinkedIn and even on paper, is if you don't look, walk, and talk like what it is that they're going to market for, you're going to have a harder time getting the first call.
That's such a good point. And I think that what can happen a lot of times is that we want to present everything we've ever done. But the problem with that is it dilutes the message. And I read this interesting fact the other day that when we're talking to somebody, and hopefully not on this live because you can get the replay here, but generally when we're having a conversation, we remember about 10% of what people tell us. And so something I see all the time is that we either get really, 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 really broad in our message. And this is including when we're reaching out to recruiters and trying to let them know that we're available for work, but also elicit from them jobs that would be relevant. This applies to posting on LinkedIn, sending DMs, and in all other types of scenarios. But instead of presenting everything, it's actually much better to lean into being specific and being a little repetitive. So, while I promised I would never actually become a carbon copy of my mother, and I become closer and closer to that every day, one thing my mom has always been great at is repeating herself. And now I do that too. And I actually found that even though sometimes it can feel like you're saying the same things over and over when you're posting content, when you're writing about yourself to an employer, or when you're introducing yourself to somebody for your career search, repetition is actually good and it serves you in a lot of ways.
Claire, I mean, I learned this early when I was starting to produce a lot of content, and I had an advisor that was like, just so you know, 90% of the people that are connected to you have never heard your stuff and they've never seen anything you posted. And you're like, so I have to say this over and over again? Yes, you do. And that's why the featured section is so great on your LinkedIn profile. And if you don't know what that is, we can tell you. But use it, leverage it, take those moments to use your about section. I mean, LinkedIn makes it so easy to do this. Most of us are on more than one platform. So you can carry over into Insta or TikTok or YouTube or, God forbid, X. But you can do those same things that you're doing here in other places, but don't think everyone's catching everything you've said. Chances are they aren't. And even the people that ring your bell, there's no possible way that the thousands of people that the 4 of us are connected to are seeing everything we post. There just isn't. Our feeds are too busy. So it's okay to be repetitive. And, the one thing we talk about, and Gina and I work really closely together on the unique value prop part of the boot camp, getting to tell your story and telling it over and over again. So you get so good at it, and you have your small, your medium, and large. Your small is when you have 30 seconds to tell someone who you are. Your medium is when you've got 2 minutes to introduce yourself. And your large is when you're sitting down getting to know someone. And being able to do those things and read your audience on what you need to do when is kind of important. So all of this is practice for setting up and building your brand.
So I think one of the other things that people tend to wonder is, okay, now I understand that I don't need to present my entire life story as my brand, right? And I know who I'm trying to speak to. Now, what parts of me do I focus on? So Gina, you are the queen of the UVP. So can you walk us through maybe a couple of things that people should focus on when they're considering what of my experience and my life and my story should I be sharing?
Thank you for asking. I take people right to the end zone, which is, what is your through line? And what is it that you can be saying to people that start to lock in the confidence and trust needed in you for them to make you an offer? And so for me, it's this combination of getting to know your own self and how you would explain your unique talents, your strengths, your values, and the things that motivate you and underlie how you show up in the world. And then the other part of that is really breaking down what you've done throughout your career story, and trying to figure out if there is a theme or pattern that you can reflect on as you answer the question, tell me about yourself, because we all get that dreadful question at the beginning of most interviews. And so a lot of people feel scared about it because they think, oh, that's a 90-second elevator pitch. You're already in the door. You're not pitching your elevator pitch at this point. Now you need to give them enough context about what it is that you do, who you serve, and how you do it. And if you can say, well, the theme that kind of runs through my career is I'm consistently tapped on the shoulder to take on a struggling project and organization where I transform people, processes, and structure. And then the kinds of results I get are X, Y, and Z. Oh, this is a person that understands their through line and what they consistently are known to do. So everyone's got one. Some have twisty, turny careers, and so it's more complicated to explain, but it is not impossible. And if it's even more complicated for you to do this, even more appropriate to go through this exercise to get to where you can answer, tell me about yourself, without losing your reader and without talking for more than 5 minutes.
You know,
sorry, your audience. Can you tell I've been right?
5 minutes can be long, right?
Yes.
You know, like when we were doing the boot camp, one of the things that was really effective that both Lindsay and Gina, you guys did, was able to take someone's story from this big, right, and to distill it down so that, you know, you can talk about yourself in a soundbite, right? And people go, oh, okay, I'm totally clear about what it is that you do and what it is that you want, and then leave them wanting more, and then end it in a way that encourages more questions, right? So you're not like, boom, mic drop, because then what else is there, what else are they going to ask you about if you just, you know, said everything? And I think, you know, the metrics and all of those things are important. Me personally, I have a hard time talking about myself. It's something I love talking about, my business. I love talking about my friends. I love talking about all this stuff. But when people are like, so tell me about, I'm like, well, you know, and so it's something I really actively think about, and something I actively work on. And the more you work on it and the more you practice it, the better it gets.
So this is the perfect segue, because I would love to talk a little bit about yesterday we had Andrew Gibbs and Donna Brown on, who gave testimonials about their experience in the boot camp. And they are two people who did a marvelous job building their brands. And I know Andrew's on with us today, and he's our beloved data cowboy. And we had him lean hard into the data cowboy brand. We thought that was such a differentiator. Jen, do you want to talk a little bit about just some of your observations and kind of how you see them doing now with their brands? Because I don't want to monopolize the talk.
Well, I mean, it's, first of all, everyone should go back and watch the live, because it was heartfelt. It was detailed. It was, you know I just said detailed, but I'm going to say granular on top of that. But I think it was, you know, like when you come in and you're trying to figure out, where do you fit in? What do you say? How do you articulate it? You know, when you are very successful and you've had all these benchmarks, you know, of success in your career, how do you leverage that? And how do you bring people to your LinkedIn site instead of just going outward and trying to search to bring people to you, right? And so I think one of the things that really came out of it for both of them, and I don't want to speak, you know, for them. So Andrew, if you think I'm saying something that's not true, I know you're going to speak up. But that, you know, I know, and I love that creating that UVP, you know, it's empowering. It's empowering to say, I know that I stand for this. I know that I did these things. I know that I can bring these things to an organization, and to have your platform on LinkedIn reflect those things. And I think both, I mean, obviously there were other people in the boot camp, but, you know, they can't talk about it because they are still where they were working before, right? So they were people who were sort of in a career transition. And I think that it elevated them. They got more people coming to their site, more people looking at their resumes and engaging. And it wasn't just a cold outreach. It started to become a warm outreach, which we talked a lot about on our Tuesday live. But I think, you know, the thing that this does with the UVP and starting it is we create this invisible thread about how all of these things are connected. What does your banner look like? What does your resume look like? What does your LinkedIn profile look like? What does your messaging look like? How do you post? How do you engage? What are the words that you use? What are the taglines? Are you being consistent? Are you being positive? Right? You know, and I think all of those things and how you create that messaging and even, you know, how you interview. You know, I've talked to so many people who get the interview and they think they've got it, and then like they freeze up. You know, there's like this sort of paralysis thing that happens. But if you know exactly who you are and what you want to say, and that's what we do in our boot camp also, is we go through the interview process. Like, here's what you should do. Here's what you shouldn't do. And so you don't want to work this hard to get the interview. And then you get to it and you're like, "Oh," and fade to black.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's the invisible thread that connects all of this together.
I think the one thing too that came out of yesterday, and Claire, I'll go to you in a second, but the one thing that came out to me was how much confidence it gave them both.
Mm-hmm.
And they both made this comment about how much their network has grown because they are so confident in their unique value prop. And because they can articulate who they are, they feel like, I am not afraid to go connect with people I haven't met. And I see them popping up in my feed all the time, which of course I love, but I see my people connecting with them. And I love that even more. And so the growth and the network was something that neither of them expected, and they are getting in spades. Claire, what were you going to say?
I love that. It's so fun when that starts to really hit on all cylinders and you feel that kind of traction building. How I feel about traction. But I wanted to also add, if anybody is, you know, if you're listening and thinking, well, I'm not sure like what I'm great at. I find that often we're really, really close to our own story. And that's why it's so tremendously helpful to have a sounding board like you're all talking about, and to have a group that you can go to and they can ask you questions that will elicit that kind of information. Because often when something is really, really natural to us, or we're just good at it, or just feels like common sense, we don't see it as a superpower, but other people do.
That's right.
So we might miss it. So a couple hacks for this is, number one, definitely join a group, join a boot camp, hire a career coach, or ask a trusted friend. What do you think I'm great at? Like, if you were to describe how I've been helpful, what are some things that come to mind? And the other way that I really like to encourage people to do this is to ask yourself, what do I get complimented on an awful lot? And almost those compliments that surprise you. I remember this one time I was working at this ad agency and we had this huge hairball of a project and it went pear-shaped in so many ways. And finally, I was talking to my manager and she said, you know, we lost the deal, but I was really impressed on how you handled it cool as a cucumber when things got hairy. And I'll tell you, I mean, if you were to ask me a couple things that I thought I did well in that time in my life, I would have thought copywriting, collaborating, you know, building relationships, stuff we hear all the time. I never thought about cool under pressure. So if you're kind of stuck on what that is for you and what your greatness really is and sounds like, it's time to get a sounding board. And that's as fancy as it has to get. It's definitely easier for other people to see us objectively than it is ourselves. And while I would love to spend the rest of the hour, I've got to step away, but I want to tell you how excited I am for this boot camp and how honored I am for doing it with you incredible women and everybody else that is on the panel. So I'm excited. If you guys have any questions, feel free to connect, but you're in amazing hands. So I'll see myself out.
See you later, alligator. Bye.
I just put in the chat when I was leaving corporate and going out on my own, I asked myself 3 questions. And that was, what am I really good at? What do I love to do? And how can I help people the most? And entrepreneurs already know this. But for people in corporate, it's a bigger struggle because you've done a lot of things. You've experienced a lot of things. Maybe you've started businesses, first of a kind businesses within the company. You have an arsenal of talent, but it's not always driven by you. You're responding to requests from others. So it's harder to find that nexus of joy. And so by asking yourself those questions and by doing what Claire just said, and oh, by the way, everyone needs what I call a board of trust. You need your people that kick your ass, that will tell you, get out of your head, that will tell you, what are you doing worrying about that? You're awesome at this, and lifting you up when you need it. And those are the people that are going to give you that mirror that you can't see and tell you who you are. Jen?
Ooh, okay. So I think, sorry. So we're all kind of saying the same thing. I call it like building a container, right? Like, and like in my container, I also want those people who are going to tell me that I'm FOS, right? That, you know, I am like, you know, hey, wow, slow your roll there. That's not like, don't love it, right? Like you need the people who can keep it real with you so that, you know, you aren't doing things that could potentially like harm you in your brand, right? Like, you know, it's like when you are you're looking for clothes or something, right? And you love a style and you put it on and you're like, does this look good? And your friends might be like, it's unique.
Interesting choice.
Right? But it's like, you know, if you are applying for jobs that you're not qualified for and you haven't figured out, because that's the job that you want to have, right? But maybe you have 60% of the skill set, but in order to qualify, you got to have 75% or 80% of those skill sets. You need to have the people in your life that can be like, listen, you're almost there, but you need to do this, this, and this in your circle of trust or your container or however you refer to it in your life. And the people that, what Lindsay said, can lift you up. Because like, this is a difficult job seeking cycle right now. I think it's one of the most challenging that I've seen in a really long time. And so
Gabe asked us a question, Jen. He said, how do you approach rebranding yourself when changing career paths on the platform? And I guess I would rephrase that question to how do you approach rebranding yourself when changing careers or changing? It's not just the platform, because it's everything. It's how you talk about yourself. It's pulling that through line through that Gina talks about. And in the last boot camp, we had someone, I won't use his name, but we had someone who I asked him really specifically, I said, what brought you into pharma? You were in financial services. What brought you into pharma? And he told this story. And his story was, we were pregnant with our first child. They told us they thought our child might have Down syndrome. And for 72 hours, we didn't know what was going to happen. And it was terrifying. And I never wanted anyone else to experience that again. Turns out his child was not Downs and healthy and all the things. But he basically took that leap into pharma to speed up drugs to market and to speed up test results. And I go, that's your story. That's your through line. That's your purpose. So finding out what is the reason
100%.
You want to get out of whatever you're doing and move to something else. What's the reason? What's driving you? Because that is your story. And that's what we weave through everything externally focused. Anything you guys would add to that?
Yeah, I would add, take that foundation that Lindsay is talking about, Gabe, and then match it up to the target audience that you are trying to appeal to the most, because that's where you can help hone the messaging, the right language for that particular audience. So it's kind of not a spray and pray, if you will, with your business. So I would do that, and then back into the kinds of content, word choices, all the things that you have to do for your brand based on who you're appealing to.
Yeah.
So I would add to that as well, like having been a person that's run companies and started companies and, consumer product goods to manufacturing to technology to healthcare, right? Like
light up Christmas trees to resumes.
Right. But it's like you don't just have to be a one-trick pony,
Nope.
right? Like the skill sets that you develop, like if you're a project manager in one area and you want to pivot to another, or you're working, as a nurse practitioner in a medical group and you want to, transfer into, pharmaceuticals or some other sort of department, like you can do that. And that's what we do, is help you define that in a really intensive 2-day program. And, like I can say for me personally, sometimes it's hard when you transition from running a company and then you start a company and then you go back to running a company, or you sell a company and then you go run that company, or all of those things. Your LinkedIn, and I will say, like, what I learned the really hard way was that I did a terrible job of building my brand. I didn't leverage LinkedIn the way that I could have, right? I didn't tell my story. I didn't tell my story just as Jennifer. This is what I'm good at. And then this is what I'm good at doing. Because whether you're managing people who are, working in LED lights, or you are, looking at healthcare technology, or you're building an HR tech solution, the management and the vision and the organization and all of those things, no matter where you fit down that role, like, if you're a marketing person and you've, only been in retail, marketing is still marketing. You're still creating messaging. You're still creating branding. You're still going to market. You might have to figure out some different ways to do that and scale up, but everybody's capable of scaling up. And I think we've shifted from when we've spent 10 years, 15, 20 years at a company. Most people are at an organization between, 3 and maybe 7 years. And then, you move on, or that company sort of wants you to move on because they want to bring different people in, but they don't want to increase headcount. And so you got to take care of yourselves. You got to garden. You got to plant seeds. You need to reach out to the people in the areas that you are specifically interested in, and have your platform reflect that you are a diverse, interesting person and have areas of expertise. That's how I would answer that question. Sorry, that was maybe a little bit long.
No, I think that was great. I mean, I think you're a perfect example of this, Jen. I mean, anybody could look at you externally and be like, I don't know, she used to do Christmas trees and she used to do this, and now she's a software developer. Like, people could easily be like, I don't get her. But one thing that is you're a visionary, and the best entrepreneurs are. But you also know how to manage businesses. And there are some skill sets that you've carried from all of those companies into what you're doing now. And we easily can pull a through line through that. So don't let your job hopping or your variety of your past make you be confused. We can find that. That's not hard. It's something we really love to do.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it, Lindsay. And like, we're outside looking at Jennifer's jar, if you will. And, part of the through line, not the singular one, is that she cares about people.
Yep.
And she wants to help other people advance in their life, whether that's, personal joy, or whether that's health, or whether that's now job search, making sense of it. So the through line is there, Jennifer. I have a couple of thoughts, if I may. One is, when it comes to this personal branding on LinkedIn, it all starts with your storytelling. It all starts with who you are and what it is that that you offer, for sure, as like a business solution is what I call it. And then once you understand all that, you've got the moving parts of creating a resume, and then differentiating yourself, one, through job search application processes using a service like Intry, to make sure that you're getting through the ATS and you're getting scored well and recruiters are seeing it, and then branded resumes where it's maybe a little more flashy. And then you're able to take all of that into your interview storytelling. And that's what I really am so appreciative of this Intry bootcamp process, is we've thought through those moving parts that help a group of people move the needle in just 2 days. And it's a heck of a lot of work, and there's pre-work before you even get into the bootcamp.
And an intimate group.
You have
right? It's an intimate group, right? You're not joining with 50 people. It's limited, and it's intense, and it's innovative, and it's everything what you just said. But I just had someone ask me the other day, like, am I going to be with 50 people? And I'm like, no.
No.
You know,
and you're never really, I mean, a couple of times you're with the whole group, but for the most part, you're splitting off into smaller one-on-ones or one-on-twos kind of moments. I think the one thing that I will say is that we take a lot of care to make sure that we're passing the ball. So you don't just hang out with Gina and then I don't know anything that's going on. Like we're taking time to make sure that if we learn something, the other people in the experts know. So you're not re-explaining yourself because, oh my God, how annoying is that when you're being passed from customer service rep to customer service rep? And did they tell you anything about my problem? No, why don't you tell me? Okay, because it just spent 20 minutes with the last person. Really? Yeah, we're not doing that.
Exactly.
We're not doing that.
So I have an additional thought related to the title of our LinkedIn Live, which is, building your personal brand on LinkedIn specifically. And the piece we haven't talked about is a thought leadership plan. And so, tying back what your unique value proposition and kind of some of the things Claire was even saying, like the personal things that are fun and offer you the multi dimensions to you, like making sourdough bread, for example, or crocheting, as she said. But you have to think about like what it is that you could be putting out in your ecosystem in order to connect and attract the right kinds of people to have conversations that then end up flourishing into something else.
100%.
Love it. Do we have other questions? I haven't seen any others. Thanks, Joseph. Joseph was in our last one.
Thank you, Joseph.
So does anybody have any questions? Like has anybody having any challenges that we could help you with, or we could give you some advice? Because we can keep talking about what this means, but I think, we don't just want this to be, about us. We want it to be about you. You've taken time out of your day to hop on, to listen to the conversation. So if you've got a question, like now is the time to answer it. Because I think we all have a hard stop at one. Sometimes we go over, but unfortunately today is not
today. Not today. I will say while we're waiting for folks, I think we've already talked about your board of trust. We've already talked about being able to give feedback. But I think the one thing that we talked a lot about this yesterday, but we really create a safe space, and we understand that you telling us your story, you're being vulnerable, and we take great care with that. We want you to feel safe. We want you to be able to tell us honestly the things you want, the things you don't. And that's how we can deliver the best for you. All right. How to identify about personal brand. What are techniques? Well, I think we kind of said it a little earlier in that, go back and ask yourself those questions. What do you love? What lights you up? And when you say, what do I love to do? How can I help people the most? What am I really good at? Those are the things that should drive your brand. If your work is not associated with any of those things, you might want to stop and reflect and say, am I in the right space? Am I doing the right thing? We've all been in jobs that we didn't feel really aligned with. My challenge as a former executive is others can't or don't recognize transferable skills or value adds for their organizations.
Oh, I can take that one. So just one of the things that I think is you have to, in some cases, explain how it's transferable, right? So like in your cover letter, right? In your summary, when you're applying for that specific job, give an example, right? Give an example of like how, you've taken this specific thing to these different jobs in these different kinds of organizations, right? Like, because really good marketing is good marketing. Good leadership is good leadership. Good supply chain is good supply chain management, right? Whether you are managing the supply chain of hard goods or you're managing the supply chain of data, those skills are transferable. I mean, think about what happened in COVID, right? You have all of those people who were in hospitality, restaurant services, cleaning buildings and all of those things. And they had commonalities with them, right? It was customer service. So you're a server, you're interfacing with customers. You're not just taking their orders, you're making sure they're having a good experience. You're following up, you're managing that full sort of ecosystem of information. And I think being able to articulate those, I mean, like, I know I'm old school, right? But I write things down and it's like, okay, so what can I do here? And what else does this mean? And, I look up different definitions of words, what are different, synonyms, right? For something that it's similar, but different. And talk to people about that. And that's where like informational interviews are critical.
Huge.
In companies that you're interested in going to, where you maybe are looking to do a career pivot. That's just, sorry, I didn't mean to take all the oxygen.
No, that was great. And something you said brought me back to LinkedIn. And one of the things, this is what I always tell my clients, go out, here's homework for everyone in the room, go out and give 3 unsolicited recommendations on LinkedIn. This could be a colleague, this could be someone who worked for you, someone you worked for, this could be a client, does not matter. Go and write something from your heart that is going to make them cry. And in a good way, not cry like you hate them, cry because you think they're amazing. And what's going to happen is they might shed a tear, they will be blown away, and they will turn around immediately and write one back about you. And your recommendation should not be older than a year, ideally 6 months or less. So this is a great way to focus your skill set, and it's a great way to highlight it. So do that. It's going to make you feel good. It's going to make them feel good. It looks really good that you took the time to do it. And it's further testimony of your skills. And oh, by the way, the skills is another thing that we address in the LinkedIn piece of the boot camp, which I'm not going to talk about here, but oh my gosh, game changer.
So I'd like to address what I would call career pathing into another path or a career pivot. Like Jennifer said, spot on. The way to make a career transition where it's not clear that your skills are transferable, it is on you to make that clear. That's why you've got to get right with what your messaging is and how it can best help that target company or organization. And then it is less likely through applications that you're going to come to the top of the pile if other people look exactly like what is on the job description. So if you're making a big industry pivot and the people vetting the candidates are only looking within one specific industry and you're not in that bubble, you will need to network and have conversations in order to gain advocacy, in order to get a look, is what I would say.
I think the other thing too is you might think people know you're looking. Sometimes you can't tell people you're looking. Like we had people in the boot camp that don't know, but I loved going back to former bosses who I know loved me and said, "Hey, just so you know, I'm looking." Wait, what? You're on the market? Holy crap. I need to figure out where I have open recs. And that's the kind of response you want. So if there are people that respected your work, chances are they don't know you're looking. It's a great opportunity for you to connect and get some good vibes from someone you respect.
And your competitors. Like if you're in sales or you're doing things, you can measure things and you don't have a non-compete. Let me clarify that part, right? Like there are ways, I know, I'm just saying, there are ways where you can just be like, hey, I've always respected you. And just so you know, like I'm looking to make a change, or I've made a change and I would love to stay in this space. And that's helped me back in the day. And it also it still works, right? It's a huge form of flattery to go back to a company maybe that was your competition. And again, as long as you're not violating a non-compete, I know a lot of states don't have non-competes anymore, but if you have one, just be mindful of that. But
we've got a question in the chat about, at times in professional life, there's no call message approach for jobs we apply, despite having matching experience and skills. while the ATS search technique is understandable, what are a few workarounds to identify any feedback about the job application? And what I will say, as someone who has conducted executive searches, it is very difficult to get a lot of quality feedback on an application. And the reason why is experienced recruiters that have been doing this 10, 20, 30 years, they know that there is oftentimes pushback from candidates. Some people can take the feedback and other people get angry, and it ends up becoming a time suck. And when the recruiter is beholden to the people that are paying them to do the search, whether that's executive search or in-house recruitment, their job is to go to market and try to satisfy that job hiring manager's needs. And if they're looking for something very specific and you don't have it, then you're not going to bubble to the top of that pile. So it will be very difficult to get feedback on the application itself unless the recruiter can say, for now, we're focusing on candidates that have X experience. If I'm missing that in your application, please point it out. That's a technique I have used. And usually the applicant can go back and go, yeah, I don't have that one thing. So thank you for sharing.
I'm just going to say ditto to that. So we've only got 9 minutes left, but one thing I just want to talk about your brand that I fell into right early on is that your company isn't your brand. You are your brand. And so you want to be really careful that you're not defining yourself by the organization that you work for, right? So that when people see your name, they're like, oh my gosh, she's so great at this. But look, they're also involved in all these other things, and he's involved in this, and they promote, this, or, there was a LinkedIn post early this morning. I don't even want to say how early it was because it's too early for any human to be awake. And it was a pretty bold post, and I liked it, and I was like, ooh, I might get some pushback from this, but I thought that's part of who I am, right? Whether I'm running a company or I'm starting one or I'm part of another group or organization, I can't give up on what my core values are. I'm not going to pick a fight. I'm not going to use this for political statements, right? Because that's not what LinkedIn is about, right? But it doesn't mean you have to kowtow or not do things that other people might disagree. Like, the beautiful thing about where we are and what we do is that we can agree to disagree, right? So I think being part of your brand is like, Lindsay mentioned, like I'm a big horse fan, right? And so like I look at other people who have horses, and there's a shared camaraderie there. Now, is that going to get me a job? Probably not. But you find like people that you have similar things with. And like I said on the talk, I don't know, yesterday or Tuesday, is, sometimes you don't know who you don't know. And being your authentic self and making authentic comments in spaces that you're knowledgeable about, right? Not to pick a fight, not to, make any sort of really super strong political statements, because those can backfire on you. But I think being authentic to your brand and making sure that it doesn't get lost in the organizations that you're not just posting about that you're working for, and not that you shouldn't do that, right? But also things that you care about, like if you are, on, the executive searches, or if you are on, like the Forbes female executives, whatever it is that's personal to you, to join those groups. And those are really great platforms where this isn't necessarily the platform to mention this, but those are sometimes the hidden job markets, where you get a network of people and you can DM some of them and be like, hey, I'm open to an opportunity. Here's what I'm looking for specifically, not just like blah, right? But that also helps create your brand, and that draws people to you, and it expands your circle. So you start with a little circle, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And your opportunities, therefore, get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Ladies, I have to drop because I have another live and I need to get some water. I love being with you. Guys, please check out the boot camp. Would love to see you there. I leave you in great hands, as Claire says.
Good
And,
luck.
I'll see you soon.
Have fun. See? Bye.
Bye.
And I'm just going to put the link to the boot camp in our chat.
Awesome.
And so if anybody has any questions, because I know we both have hard stops after this, but we really appreciate all of you showing up in the comments that you are leaving and the questions that you're asking. You know, it's important to us. Y'all are important to us.
Yes, thanks everyone. And thanks for the questions, especially. It makes it fun and interactive for us too, since we're not on a usual like type of Zoom call where you can just pop in and actually ask it in person. So it's really fun. Thank you.
So any last minute questions before we say we'll see you soon?
We need someone to sing us out. So long, farewell.
You definitely don't want me to do that. It's that people are like,